The other night, I managed to place top 8 in a 100-person Regulation G tour, and I did it with Kyogre Iron Jugulis. Now, there's a couple things I want to preface before we get into actually analyzing the team. First off, as always with these early format team reports, I am not going to claim that this is the best team in the format. I am not going to claim that this team is really, really good. But I am going to claim that I think the team has a lot of potential. I think there's a lot to take away from this team, which is why I'm making the video on it. And I think it's really, really good to talk about it and discuss it, kind of what I liked, what I disliked, where I would go with the team from here. And of course, the second disclaimer, I got a lot of hate for calling Iron Jugulis a Veltal at home last night. And everybody was like, yo, you're disrespecting Galarian and Moltres. I'm like, guys, it just doesn't matter. None of them will ever be a Veltal. I just miss a Veltal, and that's all I really care about. But anyways, into the team, that's why we're here. And I'm going to start with, I went into this tournament without playing a single game with this team. Basically, the morning of the tournament, I said, you know what? Kyogre Farigiraf sounds pretty good, and it's a concept I had tested before, and we're really going to focus on that being the main core of this team. And I said, what if we kind of just like had a Kyogre Farigiraf, we're able to control the board state really, really well, and an abused Rain with a Landorus. And I said, you know what, that concept sounds decent, let's run the team and see what happens. Ended up getting top 8 in the tour, which feels pretty good. The team actually felt incredibly strong all night, probably could have gone farther if I didn't like toss the end game or just not miss a Sans here. But you know what? Regardless, team was really, really strong. We're going to talk about it, and we're going to start with the heart of the team, and that is going to be Kyogre, Farigiraf, Amoonguss, and Incineroar. Those are the 4. Okay? Those are the 4 Pokemon that make up this team, in my opinion. Jugulis is a cool adaptation along with Landorus. I think both of them are really, really strong. They have strength in their own rights, but the core of 4 that I really, really am sold on right now is these first 4. I think those 4 are incredible right now, and I really want to try and see how that can develop as the format continues. We're going to go Incineroar first. There is nothing to talk about here. This is the same Incineroar I have been running all of Regulation G. You are living Precipice Blades from Groudon because you can no longer intimidate it. So you got to live the Precipice Blades as long as it's spread. That's what the 252-76 does. Other than that, a little bit of speed, 4 in attack, chuck the rest into special defense bulk, and you know what, we game from there, right? That there's nothing else to say. It is your normal Incineroar. Dropping Flare Blitz for a Will-O-Wisp is a very strong consideration on this team, and something I may look at moving forward if I do decide to keep running this team, because I think it just allows Kyogre to do even more, right? We hinder off physical attackers immensely. Flare Blitz oftentimes wanting to be in the rain, or with Instant always tending to be in the rain. I have Rain Dance on Jugulis. I have the rain setting up from Kyogre. Flare Blitz doesn't do as much, so you might as well run like a Will-O-Wisp parting shot knockoff thing. It's something I like to test. I ran it with a standard one last night. It worked just fine, but Wisp is definitely something cool on the instant slot. Amoonguss, we've been talking Amoonguss all format, guys. There's nothing to say here. It's still just an Amoonguss. This spread needs to be reworked. Do not take this spread. There is a lot more special threats in this format right now, so you do need to boost your special defense quite a bit. I would modify this in a little bit. I don't think you need to go 236, but it worked out for the purpose of the team, especially knowing Kyogre is weaker on that physical side. Being able to swap an Amoonguss, have that bulk is very, very strong as well. So I'm not like completely trashing the spread, but I would definitely, at least at the very least, look into this and see if I can maybe modify getting a little bit more special defense and just trying to lift some of those special hits a little bit better. We're going into Kyogre, and the first thing we're going to talk about with Kyogre is 204 196 is ridiculous, okay? I did not expect to live half of the things I was living. I was living Terra Dark Wicked Blows from like 75%. I lived a Woodhammer from an Ogerpon Fire. I lived a Woodhammer from an Ogerpon Fire. Yo, hold on a sec. And I just genuinely don't know how to feel about that yet. Like, this is disgusting, okay? I should not be allowed to do as much damage as I do with Water Spout while taking hits the same way I did from that Woodhammer in general all night. It was incredible. Just having the luxury of not dying and being on the field, late game coming on in, getting that Pollen Puff up, in gaming, getting it back, just getting all that health back. There was another game we were playing Zamazenta. They were at +3 defense. They clicked body press. Kyogre lived on like 2, and I was like, oh, I just pollen puffed that one up, and we game and we're good, right? I think the bulk on Kyogre on this team is what makes this team go, right? I have rain 90% of the time. Water spout does a massive chunk of damage, and I didn't really feel the need to have more than 76 special attack. But that is something that can very easily be modified with still having a strong chunk of bulk. But when I build Kyogres, I like to build my Kyogres bulky. I don't know what this spread does. I'm going to be honest with you. It kind of just looked nice. I'm going to sound weird. People are going to laugh at me in the comments section and let me know if I'm insane. You guys in the comments will let me know if I'm insane. So when I make spreads without like actually looking into them, when I make like basic spreads to start off and I test a Pokemon, I take the numbers, in my opinion, that looked pretty. Like 204 is a very nice number for an EV stat, whereas 188 is a very ugly number. And I like have a whole tier list of numbers that I like and numbers that I don't like. I'm insane. I'm aware of that. So a lot of these are just numbers that I like, although 20 is pretty ugly. But anyways, besides the point, back to what the actual spread does. Once again, 76 is just that first bump in special attack, nothing crazy. Dumped it into a crazy amount of defense because I didn't need speed. I had no business needing speed on this team. All I needed was to sit at 112. 112 under the tailwind that the Jugulis would get off would allow me to outpace the Adamant Scarfurshifu's and would allow me to outpace the Calyrex's. And I was very content with that. But I said, you know what? I feel like 112 in these restricted formats is that speed stat a lot of Pokemon may try to hit. And I really didn't want to have that speed tie. So I bumped it up to 113. I was sitting at 113 last night. It felt pretty good. It's a weird speed tier. There's a lot of the times where you're playing the line versus a Palkia, which doesn't really come. It did come up last night. I had no clue. I thought I was going to be faster than it, but I ended up being slower than it, and I lost the game because of it. But that's besides the point. Actually, I lost the game because I wasn't paying attention because of it. But had I been paying attention, it probably wouldn't have been a loss. But you got to figure out with a Raging Bolt speed tiers, you got to figure out potentially some of these slower Rillabooms as well. There is some issues with the speed stat because you have to map out what's going on in front of you. You can't really do that. But overall, it felt really good just living things and clicking Water Spout in return, clicking Origin Pulse in return. Because big water damage was the concept of this team, and putting it out was really, really strong. I like Terra Grass. I really do genuinely think Terra Grass is really, really strong on Kyogre. Just forcing your opponent to think twice about clicking those Wood Hammers, to click those electric attacks. And it was really, really clutch versus a Groudon Raging Bolt team that I played. I did end up losing to say it was in top 8. And I did end up tossing that set away or getting unlucky, whichever way you want to look at it. But that's not the point here. It comes in handy because you're able to sit in front of the Raging Bolt a little bit better while still leveraging your water attacks versus the Groudon. Maybe drop an Ice Beam into the Raging Bolt, right? And Grass was really, really nice. Having that defensive pivot and sitting on the field longer to be able to just once again get an extra Water Spout, get that extra Origin Pulse, right? Getting those extra attacks are massive for this team, and I really, really liked having the defensive Terra on such a defensively built Kyogre, and it felt really, really strong. I want to modify this spread a little bit. I think there's a few things that I could like modify, like maybe going up a tad bit so I'm not missing a few KOs, because I did miss a few KOs yesterday, but I didn't really feel like that was a spread issue because I still managed to clean up the game even though despite missing those KOs. So for Ragraf, there's not a lot to talk about here. Shadow Ball was a test. I put it in the builder and I said, you know what? Shadow Ball could be fun. Okay? I said Shadow Ball kind of looks fun. Let's roll with that. Let's see if it happens. Not much else to say there, guys, okay? Helping Hand, obviously for Helping Hand beside Kyogre. You could drop Shadow Ball. You can switch this to either a Foul Play, you can go Hyper Voice, you can go Rain Dance beside your Kyogre if you really wanted to. I had the Rain on Jugulis, didn't think I needed another Rain Dance user, would have felt like it was a little bit much. But Shadow Ball kind of at least scares the Calyrex. Probably unlikely that it's really going to do all that much. I don't think it kills, but especially not off this spread, right? But it is something to consider. I wanted to try it out last night, and I clicked it a couple times. It didn't really matter, but it was a good team. It was a fun move to have. But I think there's potentially better options here. So if you're gonna take the team, you're gonna try it out. Modify the Shadow Ball. I don't think you really necessarily need it. Maybe you do need it. Maybe I'm wrong. Like I said, I built the team pretty quickly as a concept team and said, you know what, Jugulis is a cool mon. Let's go have a good stream. But once again, Shadow Ball doesn't do too much. The spread's not crazy. 180 HP that's all I need. I get more out of investing in my defenses because they are the lower stats. as opposed to the HP. So by investing in HP, I only have 180, or I went all the way up to 180, I should say. Normally I would go lower, but 180 covers for the Annihilate Final Gambit, which once again I don't see happening. But if I'm capable of putting myself in a position and building a spread where if I happen to play that one Final Gambit Annihilate, I have the line, that feels really, really good. Right? Knowing I have a line if the Annihilate is just trying to click Final Gambit into me, is very, very nice. Now, granted, it's not going to come up very often, but it is something that I wanted to talk about, and I did want to touch upon it. Other than that, I'm just dumping it into bulk, trying to live as much as I can. Once again, this is actually an older spread. I couldn't begin to tell you what this spread accomplishes, but it's a giraffe spread. It's meant to sit here and live things and get Trick Room up. Probably could modify it a little bit, look into whether or not you want more special defense, more off physical defense, right? But I went with this. Once again, Kyogre is weaker on the physical side. I'm going to be switching into physical hits a little bit more, so I figured that was the way I wanted to approach it on the Farigiraf. But either way, old spread, still really, really strong, worked out pretty well, and I'm in love with this concept, okay? Don't get me wrong, like the concept of having a Kyogre giraffe and then the ability to just obsessively control the board state with a Moongus and Incineroar. I can go redirection Trick Room. I can go parting shot Trick Room. I can go fake out Trick Room. I have so many ways to set up Trick Room and then bully things with Kyogre. It feels incredible. Now, I wanted to patch this with that secondary mode, so to speak. Iron Jugulis, guys, this can just be a Tornadus. I am going to throw this on the field right now. This could just be a Tornadus. Okay? I'm going to say it right now. And I will say it time and time again, this could just be a Torn. Getting the Prankster Tailwind, getting Prankster Rain Dance, just honestly kind of makes a little more sense. I just have some crazy hatred for Tornadus, and there's also a cool content mod, and I miss a Veltal. So that's why there's a Jugulis here, okay? But to be honest, it did its job last night, okay? It actually came in handy. I ended up playing a Muck team, and having the guaranteed Hurricane connection in Rain was very, very nice if I could get that going, and I ended up needing it, so that was pretty good. But other than that, the concept of this was just to kind of be a booster energy mon. I was going to be faster than those Cali Shadows and just hinder things off, right? If you've noticed about a lot of the teams that I've had success with over the past, if you've been around for the channel, if you've been around the channel for a while now, you've seen my big success teams, and those are the gouging fire teams, those fast mons that can support your team, the roaring moon teams. And that's kind of what Jugulis is supporting. That's the role Jugulis is providing in this kind of team. Right? It's that fast support. I got fast support to reset Rain. I've got fast support to get Tailwind up. I've got fast support to hinder off some special attackers. And that's basically the entire concept of this Jugulis, was that fast support. And because I'm on a Kyogre team, and because I have manual Rain Dance, Hurricane can be my move of choice, and I can easily remove a lot of the grass types this way, and that feels incredibly, incredibly strong. Don't ask me what the spread does. Genuinely do not ask me what the spread does, because I genuinely do not have the answer for you. I went Terra Poison because it felt like the right Terra in front of potentially like a Fluttermane or any other fairy types in the format. That can play around with. I think Steel is another possible one that I can definitely see. But like, you know what I mean? Steel, and then I'm not weak to fire because I have Kyogre, right? So Steel definitely makes a lot of sense here. I'm not against it, but once again, don't ask me what the spread does. I'm hitting 165. I don't know what that hits. I genuinely don't know why I set myself at 165. No, you know what I did? I set myself at 165 because it's the next bump after 163. And at 163, I didn't want to potentially speed time Max Speed Scarf Urshifu. Like Jolly Max Speed Scarf Urshifu. 163 is the stat that Urshifu hits. If they were to be scarfs, we'd be speed tying, and I wanted to be faster than that. So that's what I did, and that's about all I really did. After that, there's some health bars here. There's some sliders going around, and I know how I said on Kyogre that I don't like picking ugly numbers. I hate every single one of these numbers except 36. 36 and the defense is the only number that I actually like. But other than that, I mean, this spread you can 100% rework. I did want to be faster, especially since the whole concept was fast support. I wanted to lean into that, right? I wanted to be faster than certain things, get that fast support going. You could probably just go no bulk or like no special attack, all bulk, max speed, and then all bulk sort of thing, right? There's a lot of room to play around with Jugulis, but it also could just be a Torn, and maybe it should just be a Tornadus. But regardless, Jugulis was fun last night. It actually did put in a quite a bit of good amount of work as well. Like just versus like Zamazentas, I could Hurricane as well through the boost, right? It was really fun. I did play a lot of Zamazentas yesterday, which is wild. And then obviously for that, you have the Landers. And standard Landers, guys, Sansir Storm 100% accurate in rain, much more powerful over the substitute in this kind of team. My team was bulky enough with the Instant and the Amoonguss and the Giraffe. I didn't need to have a sub on Delando. I could pivot around Kyogre, Amoonguss just freely with the Terra Grass on Kyogre as well. I have a lot of ways to not get put to sleep. I did not need substitute here. Once again, you can make a case for it, but I think Sansir Earth Power Sludge Bomb is really, really strong. You could drop Earth Power for substitute, but if you drop Earth Power for substitute, then Wide Guard kind of gets really, really annoying. This way you make the question of, like, are they actually going to click Wide Guard or not? Right, and that actually did happen versus Zamazenta game where I was like, you know what, I'm sending Sansir Storm because they're going to expect me to expect Wide Guard, and it just works out like that sometimes, right? Other than that, guys, this has been that Lando that's been floating around since Regulation F. There's nothing crazy. Didn't bother wasting any time throwing bulk or looking into it. I definitely could see adding bulk onto this Landorus as being very, very strong. Now, I don't know if I would lower the speed, but I do think potentially having bulk makes a little bit more sense. Just keeping those pieces alive for a little bit longer than they're supposed to be alive for is really, really nice. However, I had no issues just sending 252 yesterday. It felt really, really strong to me. But regardless, team was really, really strong. And I think there's a lot of concepts with it. Two things I'm really not a huge fan of. And the first one being I really cannot hit bulky water types. That is one of my biggest concern here. Having a bulky water type take the field, I cannot break it. I had a lot of trouble in yesterday's game where I just had to play a Dozo Tinglu and the Tinglu clicked Terra Water. It took me forever to break Tinglu Dondozo. In fact, I lost that game before I adapted my strategy, right? I couldn't break that. The next set, I played Terra Water Calyrex Ice. Now, Calyrex Ice is supposed to be a pretty good matchup for Kyogre since it doesn't love taking those water spouts. But because it was able to go Terra Water safely, and I could not punish it. I did manage to win the set, but I could not punish it. So trying to find a way and modifying and getting a way to hit those bulky water types with this team would be really, really beneficial moving forward, I think. I could potentially see maybe adapting with Thunder over Ice Beam. But I liked having Ice Beam. I think Ice Beam is a really, really strong option, especially on Kyogre teams. So it's a little weird. Another thing I don't like, which I just kind of remembered, is I actually don't have an Assault Vest. And Assault Vest is my favorite item in the game. I really think that I should be trying to put an Assault Vest on every team. It is a very good win condition versus a lot of opposing Pokemon because they just try to spam those special damages. You can mitigate that, and that is a very good way to shake up their strategy and try to get it back into your favor. I love having Assault Vest. It is by far my favorite item in the game. I do think it's very helpful in this format as well. I could put it on the Instant, right? You could easily put Assault Vest on the Instant and go Terra Grass. I think that's a very cool adaptation for this team. But once again, I don't think it really helps. It's a cool adaptation, but I don't think it does much. And then by now, guys, I'm sure you can figure out what my last issue with the team is. I have one physical attacker, and that is an Incineroar. Yeah, so that's not great. Especially against the likes of like an AV Raging Bolt that kind of wants to sit around onto the field, or those big specially defensive Pokemon that kind of want to sit around and hit the field. That is a major issue for this team. That was something I kind of knew as the tournament started going out, and I realized it was going to be pretty rough to play around those, like, what am I trying to say here? Just hitting those big special defensive pieces, right? Like, normally Water Spout breaks through them. If Water Spout is able to break through the special defensive piece, I don't really care. But when I don't have that physical option, it really becomes a problem, right? So maybe something like a Foul Play on Farigiraf is really, really strong here. Maybe dropping Jugulis for a physical attacker instead of dropping the Tailwind mode entirely. I did not want to drop the Tailwind mode entirely. I think Kyogre functions when you can potentially go massive, when you can go offensive fast with it and slow offensive with it. I think Kyogre really appreciates having both options on the team, and I was not getting rid of Tailwind. I think this slot needs to be Tailwind, or one of these slots needs to have a way to set Tailwind and a way to set Trick Room. It needs to be on a team, in my opinion. You can get away without it, but I think it just benefits a lot from having both options because you're never going to be that fastest thing with a really bulky Kyogre that I like to run, right? Maybe you just go max speed Kyogre and just say, I don't need Trick Room. But I really like the concept of being able to have the amount of bulk that I have on this Kyogre potentially just get Trick Room and then still click Fast Water Spout because I'm in Trick Room, right? Or I can, if I need to, they have a kind of a middling ground team, not a lot of speed control. That's where the Jugulis Kyogre strategy comes in. I get to click Tailwind, I get to click Water Spout before they're able to attack, and then I'm still being able to go fast, right? I like having that approach with Kyogre teams, and I think Farigiraf is really, really nice at shutting that down in the back as well, because I go Jugulis Kyogre, I get my speed going up, and then they bring in Rillaboom. Well, now I have a Farigiraf switch in, so they can't click Grassy Glide, they can't click Sucker Punch. And I don't know. Long story short, I feel like I'm starting to ramble, but the team is really, really strong. I would encourage you guys to try it out. I think Kyogre Farigiraf is being slept on. I think it is a very, very strong core. I don't know if the last 4 feel right. Amoonguss and Incineroar definitely feel right. I like having the slow, bulky Kyogre with the pivots that I have in Incineroar and Amoonguss. It feels incredibly, incredibly strong to me, and I'm really looking forward to advancing this core moving forward. But the other 2 I think can definitely be played around with. Even probably some of these to fit playstyle can be modified a little bit. Really, really good team. Really, really fun team. Once again, though, as I prefaced earlier, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that this is the best team in the format. I am not going to sit here and pretend that this team is absolutely busted. I do think I had a pretty good matchup spread yesterday when I played the tournament. I don't think I would get top 8 if I play a different matchup spread. Who knows what happens though, but that's really, really impossible to say. Tournament went well. That VOD is up on Twitch if you guys are looking for that. But regardless, guys, I'm going to stop rambling. Thank you all so much for watching. If you do appreciate videos like this, feel free to leave a like and subscribe. It really does help out the channel, and of course, I do appreciate it. But with that, I'm going to get on out of here. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll catch you all in a future video.